In this problem, we want to prove that a point O is the midpoint of segment RQ. So here is the point O, here is the segment RQ. Okay. Now we are going to try to prove it by using the picture which was provided for us and the given information right here. But we already know that we are going to finish our proof by the sentence O is the midpoint of RQ. So I'm going to go ahead and put it as my last statement in the proof. So I do know how I'm going to end the proof. Now, how I'm going to start the proof? To start the proof, we always use the given information. We have to analyze it, and we have to label this on the picture and write it in the proof. So I read my first sentence, and I see that angle P is congruent to angle S. So I'm going to label angle P congruent to angle S. So I'm using those marks, and everyone knows that these two angles are congruent. As soon as I label them, I have to write it in the proof. So I'm going to write that angle P is congruent to angle S, and the reason for this because it was given. Now, my next sentence, point O is the midpoint of PS, is not a direct instruction, but it was given to me, and I'm going to write it in the proof. So point O is the midpoint of segment PS, and again, the reason for this because it was given. But what does it mean to me? So here is point O again, here is segment PS, and since it's a midpoint, it means that segment PO must be congruent to segment SO. And I'm going to use marks to show that these two segments are congruent. As soon as I label this in the picture, I have to write it in the proof. So segment PO is congruent to segment SO, and the reason for this is definition of midpoint, because the definition of the midpoint is the point which divides the segment into two congruent segments, and this is exactly what we have. Now, we analyze the given information, but before we are going to think about our problem, like in general, how to get from what is given to what we try to prove, we are going to look at the picture and see if there are some other information what we can deduce from the picture. Let's say I can see that this segment RQ and segment PS intersect. It means that if these two segments intersect, we will have a pair of vertical angles. I'm going to label those angles. Here is angle 1 right here, and here is angle 2. These two angles are vertical angles, and we know that if we have two vertical angles, they must be congruent. So I'm going to use two marks for each angle to show that these two angles are congruent. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 on my picture, and let me do it nicely. And now, since I labeled this on the picture, I'm going to write it. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, and the reason for this would be that vertical angles are congruent. Now, I can see anything else that can be deduced from the picture, and I'm going to think about this problem. I'm going to think kind of backwards. So, I want to show somehow that point O is the midpoint of segment RQ. I can do it if I show that segment RO and segment QO are congruent. And I can show that they are congruent only if I show that this triangle and this triangle right here are congruent. So this is basically it. I'm going to go right now straight ahead and think, okay, so what I'm going to do first, I will show that triangles are congruent, then I will show that these two segments are congruent, and therefore point O is going to be the midpoint. And so my first claim would be that triangle POQ is congruent to triangle SOR. Why? Okay, let's look at the picture. I can see that angle, side, and angle of this triangle are congruent to this angle, this side, and this angle of this triangle. And we call this angle side angle postulate. And this would be the reason why these two triangles are congruent. So I'm going ahead and write angle side angle as the reason why these two triangles are congruent. Now, triangles are congruent, and therefore I can claim right now that this segment RO and segment QO are congruent. I label this on the picture, and I'm going to write it in the proof. Now, what would be the reason why these two segments are congruent? Look, we just proved that triangles are congruent, but corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, and those segments RO and QO are exactly corresponding parts. That's why the reason would be this abbreviation, CPCTC, that stands for corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Now, and we are actually done, because as soon as we show that these two segments are congruent, now I can claim that this point O is the midpoint. And the reason for this would be the definition of the midpoint. So what we've done here, we started from the given information. We analyzed the given information. We labeled everything on the picture. We logically concluded what we tried to prove, and we are actually done with the proof.